deliberate and act on Resolution 2015-33, adoption of the All Hazards Mitigation Plan. Mr. Barry?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, I do have Chief Matthews from the Fire Department on hand. Chief has put in a lot of work in preparation of our mitigation plan, and he is here to present the plan to you and answer any questions you might have.
Yes. Chief? Thank you. Commission, Mayor Pro Tem. You may remember back on July 25th, 2013, we had some floods, quite a bit of rain. Following that, we contacted FEMA for assistance, and after a number of meetings, we learned that we did not qualify for a lot of the assistance because our current hazard mitigation plan at that time had expired and we needed to rewrite it. We did a rewrite on it, and on December 9th of 2014, we brought it to you for approval, and you did approve it. Unfortunately, we sent it to Homeland Security, and they did not approve it. After going back with them there in Santa Fe a number of times, spent a week down there at one time, going over it with some of their planning managers. Finally got approval from Homeland Security. They forwarded it on to FEMA, and just about a week and a half ago, I got a letter from FEMA saying that they approve it finally. It's all good. The only thing we need is a new resolution signed and dated by our City Commission. This is very similar to what we had before. The only differences was we added a few maps, a few floodplain maps, reorganized the way we had our mitigation plans in there, and a few sentences here and there. Otherwise, it's very similar to what you had before. I will leave this original copy with the city manager. If you would like to see it, you can see it with him, or if you would like your own copy, let me know. I'll be happy to print you off a copy of that.
Now, Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, I would point out that one of the important elements of this plan is there is mitigation funding available through programs like FEMA. And as Chief said, we have not qualified for that previously or for some time, but by having this plan in place, having it approved, if we can identify potential hazards, say from flooding that we've seen before, we could be eligible for funding to mitigate those potential risks. So that would be something that we would, upon approval, go out and try to find funding to mitigate risks in all hazards, but what we've seen is flooding hazards, and fire could be another place that we look for funding. So.
Any other questions or discussions? Questions with Chief?
I don't. I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2015-33, adoption of all hazard mitigation plan.
Have a motion? We have a second. We have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Item C, deliberate and act on DFA LGD final approved budget fiscal year 2015-2016. Mr. Barry.
Mayor Pro Tem, in your commission, in your packet, you do see correspondence from Department of Finance Administration, the local government division, that states that the final budget for your local government entity for fiscal year 2016, as approved by your governing body, has been examined and reviewed. It's found to have been developed in accordance with applicable statutes, budgeting guidelines, and sufficient resources appear to be available to cover budgeted expenditures. In short, the budget has been approved at this time. We would have to take this action as a requirement. You also will see that there's a similar letter addressed to Raton Waterworks in regard to their budget and Raton Public Service Company in regard to their budget.
Any questions for Mr. Barry? Any motion to?
I'll move that we approve DFA LGD final budget for 2015-16.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I got a question for Mr. Barry. Is this really requiring approval? Because this is just a letter saying, acknowledging that they accepted our budget. We already approved the budget.
Mayor Pro Tem, it is my understanding that the action is as listed there, that we would approve the final budget here as submitted, that this action is required by them of the City Commission.
Okey dokey. So we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Trish, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Giacomo,
Yes.
Commissioner Schuster,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Segovia.
Yes. Item D and item E. Mr. Berry, I'm going to defer to you on both of these as we've had some extenuating circumstances come up.
Mayor and Commission, we have two items listed on the agenda that are regarding operations at Raton Public Service Company. Item D is a resolution that amends the net metering tariff. This has to do with basically the increased use of solar on residential or commercial applications, and the net metering tariff amendment would limit the amount of solar, but the issue really is that currently, under the current rate structure, that solar customer is really being subsidized by non-solar customers for their share of things like administration and general services and distribution. So I think in the future you'll see more of an unbundling of those rates to pay for A&G, distribution, and the energy by itself, but this is kind of a stopgap measure to kind of limit that non-solar customers' exposure, their subsidy, if you would, to the solar customer. What you have is a resolution in your packet that was approved by Raton Public Service Company Board of Directors, but we believe that the action should be that the City Commission should pass a resolution. That's not in your packet. We'll talk about the next item and talk about your action on it, but the next item, E, is, again, you have an RPS resolution that's been passed by the Board of Directors for approval to hire attorneys and adopt a proration agreement. You have the agreement in your packet. What the agenda item needs to be is the Commission's approval of the agreement. So to review what we're doing here, we had a settlement with Hartford Steam Boiler as far as the cost of losses on the Wartsila unit. And they agreed to pay the maximum insured value. But there may be additional losses that Raton has suffered that are over and above the insurance policy. So Hartford Steam Boiler, in order to recover their part of that, would then take a subrogation action involving Wartsila. What they're offering is that they would represent Raton, or their attorney would represent Raton in subrogation for uninsured losses, and we don't pay that attorney. We have no cost in this. However, if there are additional losses, uninsured losses that are awarded to Raton as a result of that action, the attorney would keep 30% of that, 70% of that would come to the city of Raton. So this is simply a subrogation action to recover uninsured losses. So the action would be your approval of that agreement, but we don't really have it listed on the agenda that way. So action tonight is not really proper on either item. And there is a timing element with the subrogation. So what we would suggest is if you might want to consider a special meeting to take action on both items and meeting the publication requirements, it probably makes sense to look at next Tuesday, September 15th, to meet and take that action. It's at the Commission's discretion, but there is a meeting of Raton Waterworks scheduled at 6. So we might, if we're looking at the 15th, we might meet at 5 p.m., get our meeting out of the way, and then Raton Waterworks can continue with their regularly scheduled
Fellow
meeting.
Commissioners, since time is of the essence on this thing, I would like to make a motion that we have a special session on the September 15th at 5 o'clock prior to the water board, so that we can get this thing on the running. There's been a lot of work done by RPS, and I think that we need to act on it. We would have made a amendment tonight to act on it, except that we have that 72-hour waiting period that we have to post it. So I make a motion that we do that on the 15th, September 15th.
I'll second that motion.
Have a motion and a second to table this until the special meeting, or postpone this until the special meeting of September 15th, 5 o'clock with these commission chambers. Okay, Trish, let's have a roll call vote on that, please.
Commissioner Chavez?
Yes.
Commissioner Schuster?
Yes.
Commissioner Giacomo?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Segato?
Yes. Okay, special meeting next Tuesday, 5 o'clock. Deliberate and act on memorandum of agreement between the City of Raton and the Raton Schuler Restoration Commission, Inc. for theater facility management. Mr. Berry?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, in general, the city of Raton is trying to update all of its agreements. You remember in the past, we have brought agreement in regard to management of the airport through our fixed base operator. We've brought an agreement regarding the chamber, and the next on our list was for management of the Schuler. So we did let out a request for proposals. We had received one proposal, Schuler Restoration Corporation Incorporated. Their proposal was approved at the last meeting, and we do have a memorandum of agreement for the commission to consider tonight. Basically, in the MOA, the Schuler Restoration Corporation will manage Schuler, similar to what's happening now. They will coordinate any third-party user agreements. We'll use the same user agreement that we have now, and the fees in that agreement will remain the same. In exchange for the management, there is an annual fee paid to Schuler Restoration of $16,500. That is for payment of technical services. Primarily, they do provide at each performance technical services, and there is, of course, a significant effort to support each performance there, and as well as management of the Schuler on a day-to-day basis. That's the basics of the agreement, very similar to the arrangement that we have had through time, and similar to the way we operate the Schuler currently. Schuler Restoration Board is on hand if you have any questions from them, or I would also, if they have any questions for us, they can certainly ask those.
Mr. Donati, you have anything for us?
Sure, yes.
The Schuler Theater is one of our most valuable assets, and I think the Gate City Music Festival proved it again this year. It was a resounding success. It was almost like a Schuler Love Fest. And so everyone that was there thought it was, everyone that was there as far as a performer thought it was one of, if not the best places that they've ever played. So we want to continue that momentum. We want to make this a destination for arts in the nation, actually, and we are poised to do that. And we love the Schuler, so we've been negotiating and talking with Scott, and it's been very, very smooth. We did an 11th hour kind of thing today simply because we were so busy with other things happening. But we're happy and happy to do this for the city and for its residents. And if there are any other questions, we'd be happy to.
And I would just add that, going back to the proposal which we considered last time, the committee really consists of people that are dedicated to restoration of the Schuler, and they have done that for many years. And the condition of the Schuler largely is a credit to those people that have given of their time over a long period of time. And in addition to managing it, they do additional things like try to go out and find additional funding, grant funding or foundation funding to accomplish certain things at the Schuler. So the last project that we saw down there was funding that the committee had obtained for those improvements. So very beneficial relationship that the city and the Schuler Restoration have.
I think we're all extremely satisfied with the job that you all do and really appreciate your efforts to keeping the Schuler in the condition it's in and bringing the events to it that you do, because we all benefit from it.
It belongs to all of us. That's kind of the neat thing about it. Everybody has a stake in its ownership, and so everybody loves the Schuler Theater, which in a small town is kind of an interesting thing. You don't find that too often, but everyone loves it,
I had a
so.
phone call this morning from a friend that said they saw, I don't know how to get on Facebook and all that stuff myself, but said that there was hundreds of answers to Dina Carter saying that, how do you get there, how do you get to play there? You know, so if they can bring some of their friends from Nashville and from California, then it's gonna work good for us.
Yeah, the buzz is very good.
Appreciate you. Yeah.
Well, like I say, we're all part of the team, so, and it's a wonderful thing to work with, so.
I do have a question. Are there decibel standards in place for the Schuler?
At one point, there were.
Right.
And I'm not sure at this particular point if that's, I don't know where that particular document is. But at one point, yeah, we had a decibel limit.
And I think it's a good standard to maintain. A lot of people don't understand what sound levels can do to the condition of the building, much less, hearing, but. But, so, and I'd like to reiterate, we really, really appreciate everything that is being done, but I'd like to suggest that you put that back in place. And
That can be part of the contract that we will negotiate with the city commission with approval that will
Right.
go out to all of the users.
Yeah.
We at one time had a decibel meter
Right,
but it has since, I don't know where it's gone to, but that's another good thing that will be there and be able to get a handle on all of the equipment, so.
well, it was a great weekend.
It was very well put on.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, in the agreement, now the new thing is we anticipate the showing of films in the Schuler. There's quite a bit of coordination that takes place there, and I think that we'll probably be back with the agreement, definitely something we can add in, but, we're going to learn some things on managing that for film and live stage performance. So we'll keep the commission informed, and if necessary, we'll amend this agreement. And if I could get you all to stick around, we'll sign this agreement tonight.
I'll move that we approve the memorandum of agreement between the city of Raton and the Schuler Restoration Corporation.
Do we have a motion to?
I'll second.
And we have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Item D, deliberate and act on bid award for the original town site drainage project. Mr. Murray.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, the city currently has capital outlay funding in the amount of $200,000 to design and construct drainage improvements in the original town site area. We particularly have had issues with flooding on Park Avenue, and part of those, the reason for that has been a lot of storm water that originates on Cook Avenue but winds up on Park Avenue. So the project that we have put together here would be storm drainage improvements on Park and Cook Avenue. Now, we did phase one of that, which was that half a block of Park Avenue from 2nd Street to the 3rd Street alley, and that's functioned pretty well this summer in the storms that we've had and our observation of it. That's a big improvement over the drainage that we had there before. This project will reconstruct part of the existing storm drain system that has not functioned well. So we'll replace some of the components, the laterals and the storm drain inlets themselves. And we'll do that from 3rd Street to 5th Street on Cook and Park Avenue. So you can see the bids here. We did receive 2 bids, and they are within the available funds. The low bid was submitted by Century Club Construction LLC. That's a firm from Albuquerque. We would like to complete this construction prior to the next legislature and be able to say that we have taken those capital improvement funds, applied them, constructed the project, and, ask for more capital outlay when we get there. So upon your award, we'll notify the low bidder, get contracts, bonds, and insurance in place, and try to move along into construction.
Any questions for Mr. Berry? Okay, motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the low bid from Century Club Construction of Albuquerque for the original town site drainage project.
Okay, we have a motion, we need a second.
I'll second.
We have a second. Trish, could we have a roll call on, please?
Commissioner Schuster,
Yes.
Commissioner Giacomo,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Segala.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, I was probably, should have mentioned this also. The basis for award is the subtotal of all items excluding GRT. That amount is $163,745.28. You see the amount with GRT, $177,697.69, and the last column takes into account a resident contractor preference. So it's just used, that's not a number that we would pay, that's just used for comparing bids for award. So you have that information.
Thank you. Item H, deliberate and act on board appointments. Commissioners, you have in your packet an application from Ms. Diana Sanchez for a position on our Economic Development Board. I would make a motion that we accept Ms. Sanchez's application.
I'll second.
Question, how many board members are going to be on the economic development?
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner Chavez, there would be 7 members on the Economic Development Board. 3 of those are made up of city staff, and 4 are appointed by the commission. So there is 1 open seat currently. The commission has appointed 3 other members. Mr. Walton in attendance is one of those members. So this would be the final seat. We're set to meet and proceed along into economic development.
Did we get a second?
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, vote by sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ms. Sanchez is seated. Item I, City Manager's Report.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, as we said, we did complete the Gate City Music Festival this past weekend. City crews, the Public Works crews specifically, had spent the previous week in preparation of that, some street repairs, getting barricades in place, those kind of activities. There were quite a few volunteers that were city employees that were engaged in that through the weekend. I thought it was a really successful weekend, especially for a first-year event, and we look for greater things with this event in future years. But great comments from the performers that attended. I think it was a really great start for that event. The Master of the Mountain event will be held September 11th and 12th between Lake Maloya, Raton, and the NRA. That has really grown into a substantial event also. Quite a few people coming into town and looking forward to this. We've got people traveling really some great distances. We have an entry from Canada attending the Master of the Mountain, I understand, this year. So that's a great event that will happen this weekend. In addition to preparations for Gate City Music Festival and additional their regular duties, Public Works has been working on striping downtown avenues. You've probably seen them painting the parking lanes downtown. We'll continue that we should wrap it up in the next day or two. We have a lot of drainage improvements on our list, and this fall we'll really be concentrating on drainage improvements as well as continuing repair of potholes before the weather gets cold. Fire department has continued to work on the station on the Troy Street. There is solar panels put in place on the roof. and they're producing power. The work going on consists of interior finish of that station, and we're doing that with our own crew. So contractors are essentially completed. We would seek the idea of putting solar energy or other types of energy efficiency on city buildings. That's something that the ratepayers really pay for it. You know, there's not a bill that's sent to the city of Raton, so it's really kind of divided up among the ratepayers. So our goal is to seek these energy efficiency projects for city buildings to try to ease that burden on RPS ratepayers. So we'll continue to do that, but the solar installation at the fire station on Troy Street's working great, in place and functional. We do plan to open bids on 2 street projects on September 24th. That's First Street pavement rehabilitation and the co-op project we talked about, Pecos Avenue and Galisteo Avenue. Timing-wise, we just can't get this in before the next regular commission meeting, but because we're getting late in the year and we want to complete this work this fall, we would ask the commission to consider another special meeting. We'd like you to schedule a special meeting on September 29th and consider those 2 bids. So if you would think about that, we would have it at 6 o'clock and hope to get a couple of bids to you. And then right after the 1st of October, complete this work. We've scheduled a pre-construction meeting tomorrow at 11 a.m. for the multimodal project. The contractor, Nissa Construction, and the engineer, Bohannon Houston, will be here at City Office at 11 o'clock. After that meeting, we would expect to have signed contracts, bonds, insurance, and issue a notice to proceed to the contractor. So sometime between the end of this week and October 1st, we would expect to see them break ground on the project. An update for you on the audit. The audit has been, field work on the audit has been underway by accounting consulting group. They've logged 2 weeks of field work here at City Office, and that field work has been completed. We had staff working really through the weekend to make sure they had all the information that they needed, and understand they do. Everything is complete as far as the field work, and we're significantly ahead of schedule that we were in the previous year or previous years. So it's looking good to complete that in a timely manner. And that's really all I have on the audit, but that's, Mayor Pro Tem, all I have in my report as well.
Thank you. Any comments for Mr. Berry? Any comments from our commissioners? Having
Sounds
concluded,
like good work.
having concluded the business of this meeting, I adjourn this meeting. Thank you.